Hello and welcome to Rolling Out's Health IQ. I am your host, Portia Monique. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with business consultant, entrepreneur, and author of Just Keep Living, Conversations with Granny, Miss Lisa Bennett. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Portia. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today. And I want to dive right into the book. We were talking behind the scenes and you were telling me that you had a completely different life before you became an author. But I do want to dive right into the book and we can get into your previous life a little later. But tell us about the book. Tell us what we can expect and tell us what's one of the most important lessons that your granny has taught you.
So I can tell you the most important lesson she taught me was, she used to say, Lisa, you know why you're stressed? And I was like, no, Granny. She said, you're stressed because you're always trying to do God's job. Mm. You let God do God's job. You just sit to the side and be a spectator. That's the most important thing, I think. I think that any ancestor can tell us. And the title of the book, Just Keep Living, is pretty much based on that premise. What happens is over time, if you just sit back and let God do the heavy lifting, let God have his way, don't fight. The Bible says, and wherever you shall find yourself, be content. You just let things roll out, manifest the way they're supposed to be. You'll be fine if you just trust that God's got your back. He did not waste his time creating you just to fail. And if you would stop trying to get in his way and do his job and make decisions for him and wait for him to let things roll out naturally, you're going to be okay. But we're so busy when we're younger, trying to find the answer, trying to fix it, trying to find the right way, trying to dissect it, trying to understand it. And so what I've learned living with my grandmother and my great grandmother, 6 generations, we've always been blessed with 6 generations. And now I have a granddaughter. So she would have been the 8th generation, right? We've just always been blessed to watch that work itself out and to get anecdotal insight from them. And they'll go, hey, watch and see what God do. Just sit back. Yeah. You don't even know why he's moving things around the way he's moving them around, but he's got your best interest at heart. So just wait it out and you'll see.
Absolutely. I was raised by my maternal grandfather. Of course, my mom, she raised me as well, but my maternal grandfather was in my life. And that's one of the things that he continuously said to us, just keep living, just keep living. Just keep living. So that message definitely rings true about your granny. And I want to talk about how you came up with that name, right? Can you expound upon Just Keep Living and what it meant for you and your granny in terms of how she delivered that message to you?
So it was actually a really intentional conversation one day. When I was younger, so my grandmother was never one for going to the movies or going out or hanging out. My grandmother went to work, so we always laugh in our family because when the movie The Help came out, when I was younger, I remember her wearing that little uniform. And we used to run to the bus stop and get her because she didn't have a car and walk home with her. And so she was always the help. She only had a 3rd grade education. So we would play with my kids and say, you don't have to watch the movie, just ask Granny what it is you want to know. And so she just lived through a lot of stuff, right? Jim Crowism, she was born in 1924. And so I would ask her, why you never go to the movies? Why you never do this? Why you never do that? And she would say, well, Lisa, God brought us forth for a couple of reasons. And one of us is to serve and to praise. And the Bible says you praise God all day and all night. And going to the movies just put money in somebody's pocket. They ain't got nothing to do with praising God. So I don't waste my time with that because, again, the Bible says, whatever is loosed on the earth shall also be loosed in heaven. He said, I want them to be having a good time in heaven on my part. I ain't got time to be giving somebody money that ain't going to get me no closer to the kingdom. I'm just going to praise him. So she went to church and she went to work and then she imparted in us. But other than that, she was not going to be bothered. Right. So occasionally I would say to her, I just don't understand why you make this decision or why you make that decision. And so the title came because I was reflecting on a conversation when I asked her that one time. She said, you're 5 and I'm 50. I could tell you the answer, but the reality is you haven't lived enough life and have enough references for you to even understand how I arrived at what I decided. If you just keep living, you're gonna figure this all by yourself.
Mm. She told you that at 5.
She's you know,
Wow.
I was telling somebody one day she was I came home in 6th grade. I came home and I was really upset because this young man used the word to describe me that blew me away. He said it with such visceral and hatred. And what he said was, so I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, and I've been married to my wife. It'll be 22 years coming in August.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Congratulations.
oh, thank you.
You're
At a
welcome.
very early age, I knew I was different. I just didn't know quite. I didn't see a lot of it. I was just like, he's cute, but I ain't feeling him. Not in those words, of course, back
Right, right,
then.
right, right.
I ain't feeling him like my cousins, and they going a little too far with this. He cute enough. I want to play football with him. I
Ah,
want to compete against him on the playground, but I don't want to
uh-uh.
kiss on him. So, and I knew that there was something different. And so this young man, we were in 6th grade. We were in the cafeteria and we were getting lunch. And I used to walk a certain young lady home all the time because I did. I was kind of taken with her. And he said, "You a lesbian?" And I didn't know what it meant. But he said it with such hatred and such disgust that I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was supposed to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I came home and my grandmother said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, this boy called me a lesbian. Or I couldn't even say it well, right?
Right.
And she said, "Well, what is that?" I was like, "I don't know, but I was supposed to
It
feel
felt
horrible."
wrong. Right.
Right. And she said, "Woo, you must be really important." And I said, "What?" She said, "If he ain't got nothing to do but sit around and talk about what you are and give you new names, he ain't got nothing going on in his life. So we need to be so excited about the fact that he's got nothing going on, that you are that important. He needs to figure out stuff to talk about to entertain himself because his life is not good." And I was
Wow.
like, "Yeah, you're right, Granny, that's right." And ever since then, I mean, again, I was in the 6th grade.
Right.
She was awesome about taking a situation and flipping it, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm all in the bag of chips." She's like,
Yeah.
I said, "People talking about me." She said, "Woo, dang, the devil don't waste his time chasing people he already got. And people don't waste their time talking about something when ain't nothing going on. So,
What a
girl,
way to respond to a 6th grader to make you view life in a completely different way. I think if I would have received some information like that in the 6th grade, it definitely would have had a profound impact on my life and made me see a different perspective. So kudos to Granny for just simply knowing how to navigate answers and give you what you needed at such an early age. I love that.
yeah, yep, that's what she did. And that's what led even to the book was when when my mom died, and I was not expecting that.
So
And
sorry to
so
hear
they
that.
died out of succession. So in my family, like I told you, we usually have 6 generations. And so people live to be 100 years old. Granny's grandfather lived to be 110, 150, something old. And her mother was 100 years old, just under. I think my great grandmother was like 97 when she died. So we were accustomed to people dying between 93 and 100.
Later in life, of
Really
course.
before that, right? I can remember growing up having one or two cousins who were younger passing away due to some incident or something like that. But for the most part, people lived to be a really old age in our family. And so my
Mhm.
mother and her younger sister died out of succession, and it just
Damn.
blew us away, me in
Right.
particular. And so I
How old
was,
were they if you don't mind me
yeah,
asking?
sure. That just happened in 2016,
Okay.
2015 and 16.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was in the throes of my career, doing my thing, had children in college. We were vibing. We had our routine, we had our motion going on. And then this thing happened that completely threw me out of whack and out of orbit because I knew at some point I would have to bury my mother, but
Yeah.
not at 70 something,
Right.
100 maybe, 107, but 70?
Right. Right.
No, no. And so Granny looked at me. So what happened was I was living in New York at the time. And because of my mother getting sick, I had to move a little bit closer to kind of figure out what was going on. My mother was a healthcare provider, so she was not forthcoming about her own health because she knew that I would modify my entire life to be here to make sure she got everything she needed.
Of
And so
course.
she kept things from me for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But subsequently, long story short, I came home. She passed away. My aunt passed away right at the end of 2015, and on Christmas of that year, my mother looked me straight in the face and she said, "I can't do this without my sister. I'm hurting too bad. I don't know how to do this without my sister." And they were like what people call Irish twins, right? They were a year apart, but they were so incredibly close. And they had this routine with my mother and aunt, who was also in the medical community. They would turn on the TV and watch Shonda Rhimes, had 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock in Central Time locked up, right? So
Right.
on Thursday nights, they would get on the phone and they would talk through all three shows back to back.
Uh,
So
uh,
once my aunt passed away, my mother was starting to
oh,
go to bed at 6 o'clock and 6:30 and 5 o'clock because she
mm,
did not want 7 p.m. to come.
oh,
My aunt
sorry to
wasn't
hear
on the other
that.
end of the phone.
Right.
And so it was so hard to watch her do that.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Christmas morning, she said, "I can't do this without my sister." And
Mm.
I was just like, I understand it's hard, just hold on, just hold on. Now, again, it was hard for the rest of us because we hadn't had, not that, older people, but my mother's younger sister was in her late 60s, early 70s too. We were like,
Wow.
that doesn't happen.
Right.
So 10 days later, my mother was gone
Oh my gosh.
on January 5th. And I go, what was going on? So
Right.
it was already difficult trying to recover from my aunt's passing, with it being again out of succession. And then my mother, less than 4 months later, and she
Mm-hmm.
said to us, "I can't do this anymore."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had already moved here to try to figure out some of the stuff I was going to have to do.
Right.
But my mother was living with Granny, and look, this is how God works. The house next door became available, and so I ended up buying the house next door
Girl,
before
look
my
at God. Look at God.
right before my aunt and my mother passed on. And
Wow.
it's a neighborhood that my grandmother has lived in since 1962.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so everybody moved here in 1962 together, all of the neighbors. And so the family next door had decided their parents had passed away, and they decided they didn't want the house anymore. So I
Mm-hmm.
bought the house, and that gave me the ability to move in right next door.
Yeah.
So my mother was living with Granny, and when my aunt and my mom passed away, I needed to move in with Granny because at that time she was about 92 years old. I said,
Mm-hmm.
"No, she can't live by herself." But I was in such grief from all of that happening because I went in, I didn't have time to grieve. I
Yeah.
went into, I've got to take care of this estate, I've got to do this. I went into project management mode. I've got to manage
Also,
all of
right.
this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I had 4 children, 2 of them off in college, 2 of them getting ready to graduate. I had moved from New York, moved into a new house, and in less than 4 months, moved from that house into Granny's house and taking a new job, and all of this
Right.
stuff was going
Right.
on. What we call external static around you, still trying to
Mm-hmm.
perform on my job. And so Granny looked at me and she just knew I was desperate. I
Wait a
was,
minute. Granny was still alive?
yeah, right. Yeah,
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, that's the book. Granny said,
Right. Right.
"You're not okay.
Hmm.
You're not okay." Now, she, not being formally educated, not sure quite what to do about it. And, in our culture, we don't go to therapists. We go to the church house. We get, I won't say
Right.
they're pseudo therapists, but we
Right.
talk to
Yeah.
God, we go to the
Right.
pastor,
Typically, we as a culture have turned to the church to help us
right,
through our trying times, thinking that the
right,
church was a therapist when in
correct,
fact it's not, and we really do need therapy. But yes.
correct,
Mm.
right. And so that's what she knew best. And so she did a few phone calls and prayer groups and all that kind of stuff to try to help me along. But the book is a result of what she was making an effort to do every day to sort of keep me here.
Yeah.
Because it got to the point where I did attempt to take my own life because I was just
Oh,
overwhelmed.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
I just wanted the pain to stop.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to make it stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made an attempt. My nephew found me. And when Granny came to the hospital, she said, "What is wrong with you? God ain't done with you yet. And
Mm.
if you leave here, who gonna take care of me anyway?"
Right.
This ain't about you. This is about
That part.
me.
Right. Granny was right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But so she made it her business to turn at so instead of saying to me, "Are you all right today?" She would say, "Have you seen the news today?"
Mm.
For example, I don't understand why people, what's with an eclipse? Now, this is when everybody was junking, they want to see the eclipse and then making a big deal. What's with
Yeah.
the eclipse? You know, if God wanted us, she said, "Lisa, doesn't that make you blind or something if you look at it?" I said, "Well, yeah, if you stare at it too hard, you stare at it too long, too hard." She said, "I just don't understand why people always in a hurry to see stuff that God don't want them to look at. If he
Mm.
wanted you to look at it, he would have made it so it wouldn't make you blind." And I
Mm.
said, "Well, Granny, it only happens every few years. And so people want to take the opportunity to just see, it may not ever happen again." She said, "Well, I think it's stupid." I said,
Ah,
"Well, okay." So she says, "Well, Lisa, the lady in the Bible who was leaving with Lot and Abraham, she only turned around and looked back once. She turned to salt."
right, right, right. It
So
happened a
I
second
was like,
time. Right.
point taken.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was just, so she would engage me like that and say, "Think through this. Don't go out there and do something stupid that
Right.
God really don't want you to do." Because he told that lady, "Don't turn around." He said, when you leave Sodom and Gomorrah, keep going. Don't look back.
Keep
Why
going.
you looking at stuff God don't want you to look at? Why you keep doing stuff God don't want you to do?
Exactly.
It's nothing but a bad outcome. She said, "Nothing but a bad outcome gonna come to that."
Yeah, yeah. Now let's stay there with Granny, because I want to know some more stories about who she was and how she was unapologetic in her approach to helping you to navigate through life.
So I mean, so she how she helped me. I mean, again, just those everyday things. I didn't think of that particular story that way, right? Um, this blew my mind. She was watching NBA Finals.
Mm.
James Harden at the time played for Houston, and
Okay.
he has the big
Beer. Mhm.
space. And she says, "I just don't understand. You mean them white folks?" 1924. Remember Jim Crow
Listen,
South.
she was born in 1924. She has earned the right to say whatever she wants to
And that
say.
was she.
Okay.
And we could be at the dinner table in a restaurant. She's like, "I'm so sick of white folks."
Listen, unapologetic. I am here for it. 1924. Yes. Go
She
ahead.
said, "Y'all still in slavery. Y'all so stupid. Them white folks don't give him enough money to get a shave." And I said, "Get a shave?" Now, again, no such calculation of what an NBA player makes. And I'm like, "Granny, the man making almost $6 million a year, some ungodly amount of money a year. He can afford to get a shave if he wants to." She said, "Just embarrassing. No dignified black man is walking around with all that hair, that mess on his face, representing us." In her mind, he's supposed to look like Barack Obama.
Right.
Supposed to be clean cut. Because again, 1924, a black man of wealth is manicured, got on a suit, got on, that's, and no way would you have a big beard like that. He's like, nah,
Exactly.
walking around with a woman's vagina on his face looking a mess. And I was like, don't they give him enough money to get a shave? And I said,
Uh,
"Granny, he's not a slave." She said, "Yes, he is." And I said, "How do you figure the man making X amount of $millions a year?" She said, "Yes. So you think he make a lot of money?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, how much?" She said, "Who on the team? White man or black man?" "White man." "How much he make?" "Just like we only made 2 cents per piece of cotton compared to what the white man made when we picked it. He only making 2 cents for every one of them balls that go through that hoop. He's still a slave. Y'all so stupid
okay.
that y'all ain't got with it yet. That's why you keep getting tricked."
Oh, oh. I love it. The
I'll be
candor.
like,
Listen.
this old lady, man. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you this last one, and it's about color too. I had some college friends come to visit. They had never Taste of Chicago is really big, and they had said for years, we want to come and go to Taste of Chicago. And we live in Northwest Indiana, so not very far from downtown Chicago. And I said to my friends, come on, my mom, I got the house here now. We can come, y'all can come and stay, and we'll just go. So I've got some college friends here, and one of them happens to be Caucasian. And so that morning, I know that my friend is in the kitchen and she's getting coffee or something. And she says to Granny, and Granny refers to as her white grandchild, my white grandchild. And she says, Granny, you want some tea or coffee? She said, yeah, bring me something and some toast or whatever. So she takes it to her. They have a conversation. Melissa goes about her business. A little while later, Granny's like, hey, Melissa, come and do this. After some hours, I'm going, why you keep calling her? And all of these people are sitting here. And she said, well, I waited on white folks all my life.
Granny.
I ain't never had a white girl bring me nothing just because I told her to. So I'm enjoying myself.
Oh my gosh, Granny was like, listen, it's my turn because I've done it for years. So come on, Melissa, do this right.
Right. So just
funny.
Appreciation for her experiences in life.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I just sit and listen to the stories and the wisdom. She, before they made the Mahalia Jackson story, and all of that, I knew those stories because she was like, I'm gonna tell you, that ain't even true. They ain't telling y'all the truth. That's not how it happened. I was there and watched it. I'm gonna tell you, Mahalia told Martin, stop reading that paper. Long years before there ever became a movie. And I used to say that to people, and they'd be like, how you know? I was like, my grandmother told me she was there.
Right.
So she was just able to give us some advantages, I guess, in how we looked at life.
What a treasure. What an extreme treasure to have and to live with and gain wisdom from, and be able to tell her stories through your book. So congratulations on that. Thank you so much for giving back to us because we deserve it as well. Where is Granny today?
So Granny passed in 2019.
Oh,
yeah.
How old was she when she passed?
96.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a blessing in and of itself. And yes, 96. What a golden.
And so that's where the book came from, because what happened was Granny when she was telling me all this stuff between 2016 and 2019, that was my daily interaction, right? So I'm traveling, right? And I'm in a meeting with a client up in Michigan. And we have this routine. She only calls me. I call her in the morning before I meet with clients because I'm staying in a hotel, and I'll call her around lunch hour, and I'll call her in the evening before I go to bed and say, this is my travel schedule. I'll, check with you. So I'm in a meeting and my phone blowing up. And I said to the client, I got to go. This is my grandmother. My grandmother will not call me in the middle of the workday because she knows that I'm in meetings. So it's an emergency. So I'm panicking. I was like, I got to go. I pick up the phone and said, what's wrong? He said, oh, Lord, Lisa. Oh, God, you seen the news? He gone. Lord Jesus. And I was like, what's wrong? And I'm thinking, my brother, like, something's wrong. But
right.
He says the news. And I'm like, my brother wouldn't be on the news. But what are we talking about?
Right.
And I was like, what is wrong? Calm down. I need you to tell me. He said, what are we going to do? He gone. I said, he on the news. She said, the purple guy.
The purple guy. I don't even know who that could be.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. And I go, the purple guy on the news, Barney. I mean, I don't know where to start with this.
Right.
So I'm going, Barney. She's like, no, the short one. To play the guitar. He's short like you. You know the little purple guy. He wear the heels, the short one.
Prince. Girl.
I said, Prince?
That took a toll on everybody. So I understand, Granny, because I was at work crying. I was literally at work crying when he died. But I understand.
And I said, Prince? And she said, yeah. I said, he's not a relative. This is not an emergency. What are you doing? He said, but Lisa, ain't gonna be no more purple rain. What we gonna do? And she hung up the phone. I'm like, how does she even know who Prince is? That he wears heels. Purple Rain came out in 84. What are we doing? What are we talking about? How old are you?
I feel her, Lisa, because that took a toll on a lot of people. I mean, you know, Prince was a devastating loss for our community, our culture. So I feel her. That was definitely an emergency. Okay.
I said, I'm gonna thrash you. I'm gonna thrash you, so help me. But so she kept me engaged like that all the time.
Yeah.
But when she passed away, all that stopped. And so that was giving me the zeal, the fire to go ahead and to continue to live beyond my mother's passing and to sort of heal from that. But remember, I went from working to caretaking to now all this stuff. So I still hadn't had time to process it. But once Granny died, now I had to process my mother.
All of it.
And all of it at one time. So I found myself in therapy. I needed drugs to sleep. I needed drugs to turn my brain off. I was in a restaurant and I just fell on the table. And I remember my wife rushing me home and she said, we're gonna go to the hospital. And I was like, I can't see. She said, what do you mean you can't see? And they were in the emergency room and I felt people tugging on me and they were saying, well, this is stopping and her heart is slowing down. And I'm thinking in my head, who are they talking about?
Right.
Now, I could see my wife visually sitting in the corner crying, but my mind was going, why is she crying like that? What's going on? My body was shutting down. I was checking out. I was so deeply depressed. So once they kind of brought me back, brought me back, and I was hospitalized for about 14 days so I could get myself back together. Then I started the therapy. My psychiatrist or therapist was saying, you know, the only thing that you really smile about is when you talk about your mother and your grandmother. And she said, you know, your grief is so deep because the love was so deep. And she said, so just start writing, you know, journal. She wanted me to journal. And I started journaling about the conversations and all of that kind of stuff. And really, before Granny passed away, I would put things on Facebook every now and then that she would say that would make me laugh. And every time I would put something out there, people would be cracking up. And they had gotten to the point where, like, when R. Kelly scandal came out, somebody called me and said, is your grandmother around? They called me through Facebook and said, is your grandmother around? I said, yeah, what? I said, what'd she think about R. Kelly?
What'd she think about R. Kelly?
And I said, well, you might not want to ask her that, because boy.
Right.
So she gave her opinion and I posted it. Everybody was like, Lord have mercy. This old lady's something else. But her first response was, I think we should just introduce him to Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, that's original. Is I can see that happening, and he could still just be living that life sentence that he got. I agree.
And I was just like, again, messed me up because I'm going, she knows who Lorena Bobbitt is.
She knows who Lorena, right. And for those that don't know who Lorena Bobbitt is, look it up, Google it, but she definitely cut off a member member of the member,
right?
She cut off a member.
And so she says, we should introduce him to Lorena Bobbitt. She said, or we could strap him down to a gurney and shove a pencil up his pee hole, because he needs to understand how little girls feel when he does that and robs them of their innocence. And I was just like, you kind of rough, old lady.
But just a little bit, because I ain't never heard that. Okay.
And her last piece to that was, we should, she said, and I said, well, somebody had asked, well, whose fault is it, Granny? And she said, it's the parents' fault. She said, let me ask you something. She said, when you were
out of the parents,
the girl's parents,
the little girl's parents, but also R. Kelly's parents too, right?
Well, she only thought the girl's parents.
Okay.
She didn't really weigh in on R. Kelly's parents. She said, when you were 13 and the street light came on, where were you?
In the house.
In the house. She said, where every other little 13-year-old girl ought to be. No mama should have a question mark about where her 13-year-old child is when streetlight come on. The fact that she don't know and she dropped her off, or she let her be in the company of men. She said, I was in the fields in 1920 something and they was raping little girls. Ain't nothing changed about a man's behavior, but women ought to know better. You don't leave a little girl in the company of grown men and think she gonna be okay. It ain't happened when I was a child. It didn't happen before I was a child, and it ain't gonna happen as long as there are men walking this earth. So why are you being stupid? And I was like, okay, well, we done with that. But so I started to recall after Granny passed, and I started rewriting some of the stuff. And some of it, like I said, I had been journaling the whole time.
Yeah.
And I started recalling some of the stories. It made me smile again and laugh again, because her way of just delivering the message, and sometimes a very serious message. That stuff about R. Kelly and those young girls, all of the topics that even I've mentioned today were very serious things. Yeah. And she could just rap it in a way full of wisdom, and some of it full of comedy. And you go, oh, well, I never quite looked at it like that.
And what some would say is common sense too, right? It's the whole common sense. Because some of that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Now, listen, we are running out of time, Lisa, but I do want to let people know where they can get this fascinating book. I know, like you said, it's full of comedy, it's full of wisdom. Where can we get this book, and is it on sale today?
It is on sale. So the book is available at all of the major retail outlets, including Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Walmart even has it.
Okay.
Any major bookstore outlet. If you Google it, it's gonna pop right up, I promise you. You can also, now I will tell you this, last time I checked when somebody called me, Amazon was like 3 weeks back order. So if you go to justkeeplivingthebook.com, it comes right from the distributor. You'll probably get it in 3 to 4 days. So if you want to order it directly through the distributor there, there's a retail link to work with the distributor directly. But again, it's available all over the place. We've got some plans that I will say, because one of the things that's good for mental health and therapy is the color. And so we've got plans to bring out a coloring book and an audio book to go with the probably going to be a series.
Okay. Well, I love it. So again, the name of the book is Just Keep Living. Just keep living Conversations with Granny. I'm trying to bring up the website so that they can see where they can go and get this book. You'll probably be able to get it a lot quicker than you will if you order it somewhere else. But here is Grandma. Her name, what's Grandma's name? Jessie Wilson.
Jessie Wilson, yes.
Jessie Wilson. Look at Grandma. I love it, love it, love it. Just Keep Living Conversations with Granny. Website is justkeeplivingthebook.com. And where can people follow you on social media as well?
So right there, you see, you scroll right back up for me. All of my social media handles are right there. But you can find me on Google too. I am indexed all over the place.
All right, we love it. And we see where we can find all of these books at as well. But the easiest way is to go to justkeeplivingthebook.com. Order your copy today. Get ready to laugh, get ready to gain some wisdom, and get ready to hear some hard truth, because Granny didn't play. She gave it to you like it was. So
great, no chaser, no lube sometimes.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a pleasure speaking with you on behalf of Rolling Out Health IQ. Again, I am your host, Portia Monique, and y'all go out, get the book, follow Lisa, and also purchase the book and follow what we know to be some good, hard truth comedy, as well as wisdom from Grandma Jessie. We love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.